This is the Sigma 24-70mm f2.8 DGDN Mark II lens, and it is the latest lens that got into my everyday camera bag as a full-time YouTuber. In this video we will take a look at this amazingly versatile lens from Sigma, and at the end I will tell you why I didn't get the Sony G Master Mark II version for this focal range. Starting with the key specs for this lens, it is available in two mount versions, Panasonic L mount and Sony E mount, which I have right here. It has a very robust construction, it feels like a tank. It is more compact than the first version of this lens and it feels great in the hand. The front filter thread size is 82mm and it does not vignette when you stack a variable ND filter on top of a protector filter. I recommend only protector filters from Sigma because they use high quality glass. They will not degrade your image at all, or better said, to the point where you notice it. It has better autofocus motors than the first version. They are quick and silent. Also, the focus ring is very smooth, but it is not linear because it is a focus by wire lens. Not linear on the Sony E mount version, but linear on the Panasonic version. The zoom ring is also smooth and it can be locked by a click of a button, and the coolest thing right here is that it can be unlocked just by rotating it. You heard the click? It makes a click when you unlock the lens by rotating, and this is normal. So you will just need to pay attention to lock the lens when you are storing the camera, and then when you want to use it, it will unlock automatically. Also to mention is that the zoom ring stiffness is affected by the gravity, and if your lens is pointing up, of course there will be more weight to push for the zoom ring, so it will be a little more tighter. And if your lens is pointing down, it will be much easier to zoom. This is something very normal and I don't think it is a con, since there's a lot of weight and a lot of glass inside this lens. One more thing to mention is that the zoom ring goes to the other direction than the most people are used to, but this doesn't bother me since my 16-35mm G Master Mark II zooms out in the same direction. So if you are upgrading from the 24-70 G Master Mark I, let's say, to this lens, you might need a little bit of time to get used to it. Towards the mount, there's an aperture ring which can be set to be clicky or linear by this button right here on the side, and now it is clicky, now it is linear. I usually don't use it, but in the case you don't use it too, you have the option to lock it into the auto position, and you will adjust your aperture on the body. And the lens has two customizable buttons and one autofocus to manual focus switch between them. The custom buttons don't protrude at all, they feel very premium and the lens feels very compact. It also feels very grippy because we have this texture right here on the barrel. It is also fully weather sealed, and an awesome thing about this lens is that on the wide end the minimum focus distance is so close that you can touch with the glass your subject almost. And now, what is included in the box? Sigma manuals, a soft case which will contain the lens and the lens hood, and a strap that you can attach to the soft case if you are carry the lens this way. Okay, so you have all these features for almost half of the price of the Sony G Master Mark II version of this lens. So let me tell you why I've chose the Sigma version for the 24-70mm focal range. My first lens for my first Sony camera was an 85mm DGDN Mark II. I've started with a Sony camera for my photography hobby and not for the YouTube stuff, because for the YouTube stuff I would have needed a lot more equipment from Sony, and this came with time. It is very expensive. But that 85mm f1.4 from Sigma was and still is my first love, let's say. Before that I was using Sigma lenses for my Panasonic GH5 and GH5S, and I knew that the art lenses from Sigma are amazing. and the quality of the image that these lenses produce is, I don't know how to describe it. It's beautiful. This lens also feels a bit more premium than the G Master Mark II, even though it is a very tiny bit heavier. And of course, for half of the price of the GM Mark II, there are some disadvantages, so let me tell you about them. This lens might not be as sharp on the edges of the frame, but I don't really care because my subject is almost every time in the center or on the third lines. On the Sony E-mount, the lens is limited to only 15 frames per second when burst shooting, but I am not a sports photographer, so this wasn't a problem for me. And the thing that made choosing this lens a very hard decision for me was that it doesn't have access to the focus breathing compensation in the camera's settings. To be honest, it was very hard to decide because focus breathing is very important in my day-to-day work here in the studio. But since this lens doesn't have a huge amount of focus breathing, and I also have the 16-35mm f2.8 G Master Mark II, which I can use with focus breathing on any of my Sony cameras, let's say that I am covered until the 35mm point. And also the 16-35mm is my main lens, let's say, so this for B-rolls and for shooting secondary angles in the studio is really amazing. And talking about the sharpness, if you draw a line at the end and you look at your final image, this lens would be somewhere in between 90% and 95% of the Sony G Master Mark II version for the 24-70mm, and I am really happy with it. No one will pixel peep your YouTube videos, and your YouTube videos are compromised from the moment that you upload them because the compression kicks in. So in the end, I am very happy with my choice, and now I also have $1,000 extra to spend on camera gear. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe because you don't want to miss any upcoming videos from the studio. And I am Flash, and I will see you very soon. Bye bye.